Yo, what's going on everyone, Karma here, and welcome back to another boring math video here in Borderlands 3. Today we will be talking about one of Amara's new action skills, and this one's called Phaseflare. In this video, I'll be doing a full breakdown of the skill to show you exactly how it works and how to calculate the damage it's going to do. So before I get into it, if you found it informative or helpful in any way, a like rating is always appreciated, and if you want to subscribe for more content like this, that'll be awesome as well. So, Phaseflare. Amara summons an orb of elemental energy that deals constant elemental damage to nearby enemies. Whenever you melee the orb, it will fly towards an enemy and damage them. Additionally, every time you melee the orb, it gains increased damage based on the damage that you deal to it. And the impact damage is 7205, area damage 1441 per second, and 1441 of 7205 is actually 20%. So whatever your impact damage ends up being with your build, expect around 20% of that damage to be your area damage per second. Additionally, this skill explodes. The explosion will happen either at the end of the duration of 30 seconds, or when you melee the orb for a 5th time. Upon your 5th melee of the orb will fly towards an enemy and instantly end and explode. With that being said, if it explodes at the end of the duration of 30 seconds, the explosion will deal 3 times the current orb's damage, and if it explodes with your 5th melee, it'll deal twice your current orb's damage. So now let's do a quick calculation here, very simple. This is going to be your base damage, and I'll tell you why your base damage is important. You take your impact damage on your card, which is 7205, and then you multiply by the multiplier. I'm currently using Shock as my action skill element against Flesh. That is 65% effective, which gives me 4683 damage. That's going to be my base damage. Let's go ahead and see it. 4683 as you see right there. Now, let me tell you why base damage is important. It's important because this can actually be increased by increasing your elemental damage, your splash damage, your action skill damage, and with Mayhem scaling, this action skill receives a 3000% increase on Mayhem 10. All of these multipliers are post-add. For the initial hit, it doesn't matter. You can apply all those bonuses if you have them ready. Does not matter. But when it comes to the rest of the hits, because remember, every time you melee it, your base damage is going to go up depending on your melee damage. You have to calculate that before you can apply the other bonuses. So that's why having this base damage number is super important. And it'll be the same for everyone. It's very simple, we just did it. You just take the 7205 and then multiply it by whatever your action skill element multiplier is against whatever you're shooting at. So in this case it was 0.65 and it gave us this 4683. Now, like I said, for your first number, you can apply all the other bonuses if you have a build ready. But for the rest, every time you melee it, my damage is actually going to increase based on the damage that I'm doing. I'm going to melee the orb this guy right now. I'm doing 4875 as my melee damage. This action skill takes 14.41% of the melee damage and adds it to the base damage that we talked about. The base damage, like we said, was 4683. We're going to add 14.4% of 4875, which is around 702.5. That gives us like 5385.5. And now that number is now our base damage number, which we can then apply all the other bonuses that we talked about. Now for our second melee, we take our new base damage, which we said was 5385, add another 702.5 more damage to give us 6088. And then to that 6088, we can do whatever we want with the rest of the formula. And then for our third melee, once again, we add the 702.5 to our previous base damage, which was 6088. We get 6790. And we do the same thing again, 7493. And finally, for a 5th melee, we get 8k. So, let's match up the numbers real quick. We get 5385. We get 6088. We get 6790. We're getting 7493. And for our final melee, remember what I said, on our 5th melee, this orb is going to explode and deal twice the damage. So the base damage with the 5th melee goes up to 8k, twice that is actually 16k. So now we do 16k with an explosion. And remember, in this case, we were only doing 4875 damage. You guys already know that in this game, you can do millions and millions of damage with just your melee. So do keep that in mind, please, especially with Mayhem scaling. If I was fighting real enemies, that number will be 16 times higher. And that will in turn end up making the final damage number way higher. Anyway, all these numbers that we got, once we added whatever bonus we got thanks to the melee, all those numbers can now receive the rest of the bonuses. So let's just make a quick scenario. Let's just say for an elemental damage increase, I get Tempest. Then let's say I get Arms Deal, 20% more splash. And then let's also say that we decided to add this class mod, which is going to give us a 39% increase to our action skill damage. If we add all these post stat multipliers to these numbers, we get 10k, 12k, and we get 14k, whatever that was, didn't see it, 17k. Finally, for our explosion, 38k divided by 2 is our damage. Because remember that final explosion did twice the damage. So yeah guys, really quickly, just to recap, you take the impact damage, find out what element you're using and what you're using it against, and then get your base damage. After you get your base damage, whatever the amount of melee damage you're doing, so let's say I'm doing 21k melee damage, take 14.41% of that, and added, for each melee, keep adding it on top of it. So on our first melee of the orb, we're going to take the 14.41% of that 21k, added to the 4683. And for the second melee, we add that same number again, and we just keep adding it until we get our 5th melee. And then, to all those numbers, we can apply the post-stat multipliers that we talked about. And remember, you can always further increase your damage by holding weapons with increased melee damage, which is what I just did with this Cycle Stabber. You can also have more action skill damage increases. You can use universal anointments like the 300/90 anointment, which I'm actually using, or the URAT anointment, or you can have guardian rank increases as well. Last thing I do want to mention is the constant damage ticks that this orb will do. Surprisingly, this is actually the best part about this action skill. The dot will tick for 20% of the current orb's damage. So if you end up doing, let's say, about 10 million damage with the orb, it will constantly tick for 2 million damage. Keep in mind, this orb will last for 30 seconds. So my recommendation is that you only punch it 4 times. If you punch it a 5th time, it will instantly end. Therefore, you will not be able to take advantage of the insane dot that it has, especially on bigger enemies. So anyways guys, that's going to do it for today. If you found it informative or helpful in any way, a like rating is always appreciated, and if you want to subscribe for more content like this, that'll be awesome as well. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.